Okay, so have you ever found yourself in a situation, maybe just a single brief moment, where everything you thought you knew about someone just gets completely turned on its head?
Oh, definitely. Or even about a place you thought was familiar. Right.
Exactly. That exact moment where, your assumptions just kind of shatter. And suddenly you see all these layers you never even imagined were there.
Uh-huh.
Well, today, that's what we're doing. We're taking a really deep dive into this fascinating little piece, an excerpt called A Most Unexpected Evening.
Sounds intriguing already.
It is. Our mission, really, is to unpack all the surprising bits of insight, the little nuggets of knowledge hidden in this, honestly, quite short encounter.
So a small snapshot, but potentially revealing a lot.
Precisely.
Yeah.
On the surface, you look at it, and it seems pretty mundane. Just,
Yeah.
An administrative task happening in a place that sounds, well, pretty unremarkable. Sterile, even.
Oh, okay.
But as we're going to see when we really look closely, this excerpt, even though it's brief, it works like a microscope.
Ah, okay. Zooming in.
Yeah. It shows these huge shifts happening in how people relate to each other.
Yeah.
It uncovers these unexpected little personality quirks, and it even feels like the very subtle start of a totally new kind of relationship.
Wow. All in one short scene.
All in one snapshot.
Mhm.
It's just this single, really compelling narrative moment that lets us dissect this specific interaction. So as we get into it, I want you, listening, to think about something.
Okay.
What really stands out to you when you think about those really long-standing rivalries? You know the ones.
Yeah, the ones that seem set in stone.
Right. How often do those perceptions, those really deep-seated ideas, actually change, fundamentally change? And maybe more importantly, what does it take? What are the catalysts for that kind of transformation?
That's a huge question. And it's crucial here because what's so striking about the source material right from the get-go is how it challenges that basic human thing we do, making assumptions.
We do it constantly, don't we?
All the time. We categorize people, we define relationships based on their past and what we think we know, or maybe just what we've heard. Exactly, fixed labels. But this excerpt, it just immediately pushes us to look beyond that, to question the whole framework we use to understand people.
So who are we observing here?
We're watching two characters who, historically, have always been seen as adversaries, enemies, rivals, you name it.
Okay, got it.
And they're caught in this quiet, almost intimate moment. And where? In this place that seems, at first glance, really unromantic, kind of sterile, an archive.
Not exactly the setting for a major breakthrough.
You wouldn't think so.
Mm.
And that raises this really important question. What actually happens when those established roles, the personas we project, or maybe the ones we're forced into, what happens when they get stripped away? Even just for a second. And you'll see the shift isn't some big dramatic explosion. It's subtle. Incredibly subtle.
Okay, so we need to look closely.
You really do. It's all in the tiny details, like a specific scent that's mentioned, a small gesture someone makes, a surprising thing someone admits. Each one is like a tiny crack in that old facade, And those cracks start to turn everything you thought you knew completely on its head.
Okay, let's really put ourselves there. Let's picture the atmosphere of this unexpected encounter. We're in the Ministry archives.
Right. Vaults of paper, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the description right away, it's really rich, sensory, evocative. It talks about the scent of old parchment.
Yep. Standard makes sense.
Yep.
Centuries of bureaucracy.
Totally. That's the official layer, the predictable bit.
Uh-huh.
But then layered right on top of that, unexpectedly, it mentions a faint hint of something. Flareal, Hermione Granger, of course.
Ah. Okay, that's interesting. Her specific scent.
Isn't it? So it's not just a place anymore.
Yeah.
It instantly becomes this really personal sensory experience. It mixes that functional kind of dusty history with something really distinct, fresh, almost, individual.
That's a fantastic detail because it sets up a contrast immediately.
It really does. This contradiction in the space itself. Because the archives are also described as having an otherwise sterile atmosphere.
Right, which suggests what? Order, maybe efficiency. Lack of personality, a place where individuals are supposed to just blend in.
Exactly. And yet, it carries these really distinct, deeply personal scents. The old parchment and the floral hint. So what's that telling us about the space, but maybe more about the people in it?
Well, it implies that even in a place designed for, meticulous order and maybe even a kind of anonymity, that personal presence, that individual essence, it can't be completely wiped out. It sticks around, it lingers, it makes the space feel less sterile, somehow more alive.
I like that, more alive. And right there, in the middle of this strangely scented place, we find Malfoy.
Okay. And what's he doing?
He's described as leaning against a towering shelf of obscure legal precedents. Now, straight away, for anyone who knows anything about this character, this is already weird. It's a big deviation. The source actually says he'd normally palm off a tedious task like this onto some junior aide.
Right. He wouldn't get his own hands dirty, so to speak.
Not usually. So the fact that he's here himself, physically present, for something that seems so beneath him, so menial, it immediately signals something's off, something's different.
So the question is why? Why is he personally there? What could possibly make him do this boring, time-consuming job himself?
Exactly. What's the pull?
Well, if we try and connect this to the bigger picture, those archives, they aren't just scenery, are they? They're more like what you might call a liminal space.
Liminal. Explain that a bit.
Yeah, think of liminal as being like on a threshold, a transition point. It's a place that exists between two different states or maybe between established zones.
Okay, like an in-between place.
Exactly. It's neutral ground, somewhere their usual public faces, the roles they play out in the ministry or in society, those masks of animosity and status.
Yeah, the performance.
Right. That performance might be relaxed a bit or maybe just unconsciously let go of. They're not fully on duty, but they're not exactly in a private space either. It's somewhere else.
And that makes a difference.
I think it does. That transitional feeling, the in-betweenness of the archives, it makes those personal sense, those little human interactions stand out even more, like they're spotlighted against a plain background. It lets us see things differently.
Okay, so the setting itself allows for something new. But back to Malfoy being there at all, it's still unusual.
It really is. It just begs that question. Why deviate from his normal, highly delicate, salmon-y behavior?
Right.
And the phrasing used is so interesting. It says he finds himself inexplicably drawn.
Inexplicably. So not a conscious choice.
Exactly. It suggests this unconscious pull, like a magnet, something beyond his rational thought, hinting at maybe a deeper curiosity, or even, surprisingly, a kind of comfort he finds in Hermione's presence, something he doesn't even realize himself, maybe.
Comfort from her.
That's what's implied. And then his description of her being there, he thinks of it as a rare moment of peace for him.
For him? Wow.
Isn't that incredible? It suggests a huge shift going on inside him, probably post-war. Think about the chaos he must be dealing with, the scrutiny, the weight of his family's past.
Yeah, navigating the post-war ministry can't have been easy for him.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So, in that environment, to find a moment of peace, a bit of calm, coming from such an unexpected source, Hermione Granger, the person he spent years hating.
It's remarkable.
It really is. It tells us something profound about his internal state, his need for a different kind of quiet, maybe a steadiness that only her focused presence offers in his, well, probably quite chaotic world. It's a huge reveal about his inner turmoil and what he's starting to need.
And while he's having this internal revelation, what's Hermione actually doing?
She's just working, completely absorbed.
Right. The text says she's meticulously reshelving a stack of weighty tomes. A small action, but it says a lot, doesn't it? About her precision, her dedication.
Absolutely. But there's more. She's also humming a Muggle tune he vaguely recognized.
Okay, stop there. A Muggle tune. That he recognizes.
Yep.
That's not just a throwaway detail, is it? It's another link to her background, the part of her identity he used to despise so much.
The idea that Malfoy, Mr. Pureblood Supremacy himself, is not just hearing Muggle music, but actually recognizing it, even vaguely.
It suggests maybe the Muggle world isn't quite so walled off in his mind anymore. Perhaps a bit of curiosity creeping in, now that the old rigid structures are maybe less rigid post-war.
It definitely chips away at those inherited prejudices, doesn't it? Even that tiny detail.
It really does. And her focus, her concentration, it's visible. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, right?
Yeah.
And the source adds this brilliant insight that Sight was infuriatingly still managed to be endearing to Malfoy.
Infuriatingly endearing. That's fantastic.
Isn't it? The word infuriatingly tells you everything. He's fighting. He's resisting this softening towards her. He doesn't want to find her endearing, but he can't stop himself.
So much internal conflict. Exactly. Between the ingrained prejudice and this emerging, probably unconscious admiration, these small personal things, how careful she is, her humming, that focused look, they make her human. Not just the brightest witch or the golden girl.
More than just a symbol.
Yes. They show a relatable person who finds satisfaction in her work, even if it's just reshelving books in a dusty old archive. And it's these seemingly ordinary, almost domestic observations that start to break down Malfoy's old ideas about her.
Revealing someone much more complex, more Captivating.
Captivating, yes. More than his teenage biases ever let him see. He's seeing her, not the label, and it's clearly unsettling him.
Okay, so we've got Malfoy watching her, feeling all these confusing, unexpected things, drawn to her, finding her endearing.
Right, a real internal struggle going on.
But that silent observation can't last forever, can it? The real test comes when he actually breaks the silence, makes his presence known.
Yeah, the confrontation.
And the trigger's so simple. He just clears his throat, just loud enough to break her reverie.
Okay. And her reaction?
Immediate. Yeah. Visceral. Almost like a conditioned response, She jumps, nearly drops a book.
Startled her.
Totally. Her eyes widen in surprise, but then, quick as anything, they narrow in suspicion as soon as she sees it's him.
The old reflex kicks in, expecting trouble from the familiar antagonist. Years of conflict behind that look.
Exactly. And Malfoy, he falls right back into his old routine, too, the old script.
Does he? How so?
He pushes off the shelf he was leaning on and starts sauntering towards her with a smirk.
Ah, the smirk. Classic Malfoy.
Classic Malfoy, but the text adds a crucial detail. The smirk felt both habitual and, lately, a little forced.
Forced. There it is again. That's key.
It really is. It's like watching someone say lines they don't quite believe anymore, isn't it? The performance feels tired.
Right.
Rote.
Like he's going through the motions because it's expected, maybe, but he's not fully behind it.
That's exactly how it feels.
Yeah.
And his opening line just confirms he's sticking to that old script, at least on the surface.
What does he say?
Just admiring the diligence of the Golden Girl. Still cleaning up everyone else's messes, are we?
Ooh. Yeah, that's classic Malfoy. Designed purely to provoke, to get a rise out of her, reestablish that old dynamic.
Yep. Superiority, disdain, the whole package. But because we know about the forced smirk, we, as readers, sense it's maybe not quite as venomous as it sounds. There's a falter there.
Interesting. And how does Hermione react to the bait?
Also classic.
Yeah.
A familiar spark ignited in her eyes. She's not going to just take it.
Good for her.
She snaps back, sharp and dismissive. Unlike some, I actually do my job, Malfoy. Now, if you'll excuse me, I was just about to finish up.
Direct. To the point. No messing around.
Exactly. She doesn't engage further, just turns away.
Yeah.
Dismissive, like, I'm not playing this game anymore. Trying to shut it down right there.
Which shows she knows his tactics inside out, probably just finds them tedious now. Pragmatic.
Yeah, weary almost.
But that forced smirk on Malfoy, we really need to unpack that. Because the word forced is doing so much work there.
What do you mean?
Well, it's the first really strong clue, isn't it? It implies effort. It wasn't spontaneous, it was deliberate, but maybe not authentic.
Right, not coming from a place of genuine feeling.
Or at least not his only feeling anymore. He's choosing to put on that show, even if it's not very convincing. He's performing that old role, wearing the mask he's worn for years.
Yeah.
But the fact it feels forced suggests his internal world just doesn't match up with that external performance anymore. The old hate isn't gone, maybe, but it's more like a comfortable, if kind of stale habit.
A performance he doesn't quite know how to quit yet?
Exactly. And that really makes you think, doesn't it, about our own lives. How much of our persona, how we interact with people, is just a performance we feel we have to keep up, even when our feelings have changed or the situation doesn't really need it anymore.
That's a deep question. It really resonates.
And then things escalate because of proximity, don't they?
They do. She turns away, tries to disengage.
But he doesn't let her.
No. He moves with unexpected speed, puts a hand flat against the shelf right above her head, basically corners her in that narrow aisle.
Traps her. Classic power move, but also intimate in a way.
Right. And the source points it out directly. Close proximity always did strange things to their dynamic.
So it's not just physical intimidation, it's psychological too.
Definitely. It ramps up the tension, the intensity. It strips away that public distance, those social rules they usually operate under.
Forces them to confront each other, not just as old rivals, but as, well, as two people in a very small space, aware of each other, breathing the same air.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's right then in that close space, that enforced closeness, that Malfoy's observations get really specific, intimate even.
What does he notice?
Tiny details, things you'd only see up close. The faint freckles dusting her nose.
Wow, yeah, you wouldn't see that from across a room.
Exactly, and her hair, which is usually, everywhere.
The wild halo.
Right. He notices it's slightly flattened where she'd been leaning, which speaks to how focused she was on her work.
A detail showing her dedication.
And then her eyes. He sees them as a fierce, intelligent hazel that held so much more than just the memories of their shared past.
So much more. That's huge.
It's a massive turning point, I think, a moment of real recognition. He's not just seeing Granger anymore, or the Mudblood, or the Golden Girl, all those labels he used for years.
Labels that defined her and him in opposition.
Precisely. He's seeing her, a complex person, distinct features, unique presence, an inner life that goes way beyond their old rivalry.
It's like genuine human connection breaking through.
Yes. Stripping away the old prejudice. It feels like the veil's been lifted just for a second, and he's truly seeing her for the first time. And it foreshadows everything that happens next.
Okay, so Malfoy has just had this moment of really seeing Hermione, noticing these small, intimate details after cornering her. Then what? He needs a reason for being there, right?
He does. He can't just stand there staring at her freckles.
No. So he finally offers his stated reason. He murmurs, "Not so fast, Granger. I'm looking for the decree for the regulation of unsanctioned magical artifacts, Section B, Subclause 4. Heard you were the expert."
Ah, the official business. A legitimate request on the face of it.
Exactly. It lets him keep up that veneer of professionalism. But given everything that just happened, his weird presence, the intense observation, the cornering, it feels a bit thin, doesn't it?
Like a convenient excuse, a way to keep the interaction going, maybe hide the real subconscious reasons he's actually there.
That's how it feels to me, like he needed something to say.
And what's Hermione's reaction to this request?
Oh, this is brilliant. Her suspicion seems to fade just a little, and it's replaced by a flicker of exasperation.
Exasperation? Why?
It's almost like she finds his incompetence, or maybe just his inability to find something so obvious to her, just predictably irritating.
Ha! Like, honestly, Malfoy, can't you find anything yourself?
Exactly.
Yeah.
She doesn't even seem to need to think about it. She just rattles off the exact location. Boom. It's on page 347, sixth shelf from the top, 3 rows in, right next to the comprehensive guide to gnomish etiquette.
Wow. Photographic memory, much.
Seriously. And she even points, the text says, with a slender finger, her hand dangerously close to his, showing total command of her space, her domain. It's pure competence on display.
And that competence, her knowledge, it's really compelling here, isn't it? That encyclopedic recall delivered so casually.
It really is.
It's not just, memorizing facts for a test. It shows this deep, deep engagement with her work, a mastery of detail that Malfoy probably never truly acknowledged before, or maybe never saw this up close.
She doesn't just know where the info is, she embodies it somehow.
That's a great way to put it. It just subtly shouts about her competence, the value she brings to the ministry, and it feels like he's finally, grudgingly maybe, acknowledging it in a new way.
And what about his reaction to her knowing it instantly?
He's surprised. He asks kind of incredulously, "You remember that offhand?"
Yeah.
And Hermione's reply, it says, has a hint of pride in it. She just says, "It's my job to."
Simple.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Totally. It's this quiet assertion of her expertise. It goes way beyond their old school rivalry, her just being good at school. This is about her being genuinely indispensable in her professional life.
It forces him to see her brilliance differently, not as a rival, but as a serious professional.
Exactly. A force to be reckoned with in her own quiet way.
Okay, so she's given him the info. She wants out of this intense little moment. She shifts the topic, tries to leave again.
Makes sense.
She says, "Now, if you'd kindly move, I have a very important evening planned."
Ah, the important evening. You immediately think, okay, what high-level ministry thing is it? Meeting with Potter, urgent magical crisis.
Right, that's where your mind goes. But Malfoy, he asks her what it is, and the text says he has a flicker of genuine curiosity.
Genuine curiosity. Not scoffing, not mocking like the old Malfoy might have.
No. It shows this new openness towards her world, a willingness to actually hear her answer, to maybe be surprised.
And this leads to maybe the most revealing moment, right? Because it raises that fascinating question.
Yeah.
What is a grand adventure or an important evening for someone like Hermione Granger? I mean, she's faced down Voldemort, helped save the world multiple times. She's the Golden Girl. What could possibly top that?
You expect something huge, epic.
Exactly. And then Hermione reveals.
Actually, I was planning to go home and read a new Muggle novel
Rawr.
and maybe attempt to bake a souffle.
Boom! A Muggle novel and a souffle.
Isn't that just incredible? It's so mundane in the best possible way.
It completely contrasts with that powerful, heroic image she has, doesn't it?
Totally. It just grounds her instantly, makes her so relatable. It shows this rich, quiet, inner life that exists completely outside of spells and saving the world.
A simple pleasure, a domestic challenge, an intellectual curiosity. It's utterly charming because it's so unexpected.
It feels really authentic. Like even heroes need downtime with a good book and experimental baking.
And it's a great reminder, isn't it, that real depth often lies in those quiet, personal passions, not always in the big flashy stuff.
Absolutely. So how does Malfoy react to the souffle plan?
His reaction is gold. It's maybe the biggest tell in the whole scene about how much he's changing.
Okay, lay it on us.
He just blinks first, clearly thrown by how ordinary her important evening is.
Processing.
Exactly. And then he lets out a genuine, un-Malfoy-like chuckle.
A genuine chuckle, not the smirk, not a sneer.
Nope. It's a real, spontaneous sound of amusement, a huge emotional shift. That forced smirk is completely gone, replaced by actual warmth.
Wow.
And he thinks her plan is utterly, bizarrely charming.
Utterly, bizarrely charming. That phrasing is perfect.
Isn't it? It says he recognizes it's totally outside his usual world, maybe even illogical to him, but he can't help but find it appealing, endearing.
So he's seeing her now not just as the rival or the brainy witch, but as this complex, charming person with relatable, if unexpected, passions.
Precisely. And her comeback is great, too. She says, and you, Malfoy, are still full of yourself. But crucially, it's delivered without real venom.
Just banter now.
Yes. And she gives him a proper smile. It completely solidifies this shift. The old animosity has just evaporated, replaced by this playful, comfortable teasing.
Amazing. And what's Malfoy's internal reaction to that?
He finds himself just staring at her and feeling a sudden unfamiliar warmth blooming in his chest.
Actual physical warmth.
Yes, a physical manifestation of this fundamental change inside him, moving away from disdain and rivalry towards something much softer. Affection, admiration, maybe even the start of attraction.
It feels like connection, not conflict.
Definitely. It's a profound sign of his internal evolution. The ice is melting.
Okay, so where does this leave them? Malfoy's just had this genuine chuckle, felt this unfamiliar warmth. The dynamic has totally shifted. What happens next?
Well, after that moment, Malfoy slowly, almost reluctantly, takes his hand off the shelf, breaks that physical intensity.
Reluctantly. Interesting.
Yeah, like maybe part of him didn't want that charged moment to end. But then an impulsive thought hits him.
Impulsive. So not planned, just pops into his head.
Exactly. It feels like a direct result of that genuine connection he just felt, something new bubbling up.
And the thought is?
He says, tell you what, I've been trying to master that blasted Bat-Bogey Hex for ages. You could teach me.
Wait, what? He wants Hermione to teach him the Bat-Bogey Hex.
Yep. And then he adds the exchange. In exchange, I'll buy you the ingredients for your souffle, and maybe a book. A proper first edition one, not some Muggle paperback.
Wow, okay. That is astonishing. It's a complete flip of their old dynamic, isn't it? He, the proud pureblood, asking her for lessons.
Acknowledging her expertise, even in a hex often seen as a bit juvenile, and offering very specific payment related to her interests.
How does Hermione take this completely out of left field offer?
Her reaction is just perfect, I think. Her smile widened into a full grin, her eyes sparkling with pure amusement.
She finds it funny.
Totally. She laughs, a bright, clear sound that kind of echoes in the quiet archives. A huge contrast to the usual silence there.
Yeah, bringing life into the space again.
Exactly. She sees the humor, the sheer absurdity of it. She says, you want me to teach you a hex, Malfoy? The Bat-Bogey Hex, no less. And you'll buy me ingredients in a book. This is a new low for you.
But it's playful, right? No real bite to it.
None at all. It's acknowledging how bizarre it is, but she seems completely open to it. Her laughter isn't mocking him. It feels more like a bridge, connecting their past absurdity to this potential new future.
That's a great way to see it.
And that offer itself. It's fascinating how audacious, but also how incredibly specific it is.
Yeah, the ingredients, the proper book.
Right. He's not just throwing money at her or offering some vague favor like his old self might have done. He's offering a specific kind of book, explicitly not a Muggle paperback and the ingredients for your souffle.
Which proves?
It proves he was really listening earlier. He remembers her simple pleasures, her interests, and he clearly values them. He wants to engage with her on her ground based on her quiet, domestic, intellectual joys.
That's actually quite thoughtful. In a Malfoy way.
It is. And then the hex itself, the Bat-Bogey Hex, like you said, often linked with Ginny Weasley, seen as effective, but maybe not the most sophisticated magic.
Definitely not something you'd expect Draco Malfoy to admit struggling with.
Let alone ask for help with, especially from her.
Oh.
It's a huge admission, right, that her practical skill, even in this lesser magic, surpasses his. It's his pride taking a back seat.
It shows a real willingness to learn, even things beneath him, and crucially, to learn them from her. That's a massive leap.
It reveals this vulnerability, this genuine desire for connection that's clearly stronger now than his need to keep up that old, rigid image. It's astonishing, really.
And Hermione accepts.
Well, her laughter and grin signal, she's definitely amused and pleased by this weird turn of events, and then she sets her terms.
Conditions, of course she does.
And they are brilliant. She says yes, if he gets her good vanilla beans and promises no complaining about the history of hexes.
Perfect Hermione, playful but firm, practical.
Exactly. She's willing to play along on these new terms, but she's setting boundaries, keeping her dignity, upholding her standards, both culinary and academic.
It's like this very grounded, almost domestic negotiation for magic lessons.
Totally fitting for her character. She'll help, but on her terms. It's not some grand romance, but it's real, built on respecting each other's interests and expertise now.
So how does Malfoy react to her conditions? Does he try to get his swagger back?
He tries. He forces the smirk back on, but the source tells us again, it feels less natural now, like a weak imitation of the real thing.
The mask is slipping.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He tries to justify the whole thing, rationalize this bizarre deal, consider it an investment in my future self-defense, and a gesture of interdepartmental cooperation.
Oh, please. Interdepartmental cooperation. That's the...
So thin, it's obviously just a cover for wanting a personal connection, wanting something more than the boring job he was supposed to be doing.
The old rival is now someone he wants to learn from, spend time with, under this flimsy official excuse.
It's quite charming, really, in its awkward Malfoyness.
It kind of is.
And that's really where the true deal is, isn't it? If you look at the bigger picture here.
What do you mean?
It's not really about the hex or even the souffle, ultimately. It's like an unspoken agreement, a pact for future interaction, ongoing interaction, and positive interaction.
A commitment to spending time together, learning, connecting.
Yes. Informally, maybe, but it's there. And the scene ends with Malfoy's genuine smile replacing his smirk.
The genuine smile finally wins.
It does, and he has this profound thought. The idea of a souffle and perhaps a shared evening seemed infinitely more appealing than the tedious decree he came for in the first place.
Wow, that says it all. A fundamental shift in his priorities.
A huge shift in what brings him contentment. He's moved from needing professional status or keeping up appearances to valuing genuine connection and simple pleasures.
Yeah, well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. What seemingly tiny, unexpected gestures, what weird little propositions, can actually lead to massive, lasting change, especially between people you'd never expect to connect.
Sometimes the biggest shifts start with something as simple as good vanilla beans.
Exactly.
Wow. What an incredible little scene to unpack today. We've really taken a deep dive into this encounter that, it started with all that familiar tension.
The echoes of the old rivalry.
Exactly. And it ended with this surprisingly friendly, almost domestic negotiation. A deal involving hexes and baking ingredients.
Quite the turnaround.
It really was. We saw those old habits, those deep-seated prejudices start to break down bit by bit. We saw these surprising personal interests come out. Who knew Malfoy struggled with Bat-Bogeys?
Or that Hermione's idea of a great night involved Muggle novels and souffles.
Right. And through all that, we saw the beginnings, the forging of a completely new kind of connection between them.
It seems like the key was observation, doesn't it? Malfoy really looking at her.
I think so, too. His noticing those small, seemingly mundane details about her, her quiet passions. That seems to be what really sparked the change in him.
Not some big dramatic event, but just a quiet moment in a dusty archive, paying attention to the little things.
Yeah. And, in their own ways, both of them showed this courage to be authentic, didn't they? A willingness to step outside those public roles the persona's history had kind of forced them into.
Dropping the masks, even just for a little while.
It makes you think, are we sometimes so stuck in our old scripts, our old ideas about people that we miss the chance to really connect with who they are now and maybe who we are now?
That's a really powerful thought to leave with from this deep dive into a most unexpected evening. It really challenges us, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, how often do we prejudge people based on old stories, fixed roles, what society tells us to think about them?
Probably more often than we realize.
And when we do that, How often do we completely miss the subtle shifts, the surprising depths, the unexpected warmth that might actually be showing up in quiet, unscripted moments?
Yeah.
What chances for real, unexpected connection might we be overlooking in our own lives? Just because we haven't allowed for the possibility of, a genuine chuckle.
Or a shared appreciation for good vanilla beans.
Exactly, with someone we never, ever expected to connect with. This story is such a good reminder that those big perception shifts, they often happen not in the grand gestures, but in the tiny sensory details, the unexpected admissions.
So a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah. Think about this. What seemingly small, maybe slightly out of character details have you noticed recently in someone you thought you knew inside out? Details that might just completely reshape how you understand them.
Or even reshape your relationship with them.
Potentially. Keep an eye out for those little micro moments in your own day-to-day interactions. You never know. They might just be the start of something truly unexpected.